Chosen one, close your mouth right now. Whatever you were about to say, stop. Do not speak it. Not yet. God is moving in a way that requires your absolute silence. And if you miss this instruction, you will cost yourself everything that has been prepared for your next chapter. The enemy is working overtime right now for one reason and one reason only. He knows that what God has scheduled for your life in the next season cannot survive in the wrong atmosphere. And your words are either building that atmosphere or destroying it. It all ends here. The confusion about what to say, who to tell, how to explain yourself. But listen closely, because this is the part most people miss. It is not ending because you finally got it right. It is ending because God is furious enough on your behalf to step in and handle what your mouth was about to make worse. Think back to that moment this week when you almost said it, when you almost made the call, when you almost sent the message, when you almost explained yourself to someone who never deserved your explanation. You stopped. You pulled back. You closed your mouth at the last second, and you don't even fully know why. You didn't ruin your assignment. You protected it. Heaven blocked everything else you had scheduled today to bring you this specific instruction. So lock your spirit in, because what I am about to share could be the most critical thing you hear this entire year. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment scheduled before the foundations of the earth. You are standing at a threshold, and what you do with your mouth in the next season will determine which side of that threshold you end up on. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the exact legal decree from the court of heaven that cancels the assignment the enemy placed on your tongue. I am going to walk you through the specific moments this week where your silence was not weakness, it was warfare. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals your next move in divine secrecy, so the enemy cannot intercept what God is building in the dark. Do not click away. Your future self is begging you to stay. Because if you leave now, you might accidentally open your mouth at the exact moment God told heaven to watch for your obedience. My name is Zerekiel. I have spent years studying the hidden patterns of divine warfare. What God does when he goes silent. What heaven looks like when it is furious on behalf of its chosen. And what happens in the spirit realm when a chosen one finally closes their mouth and lets God fight. I have walked over 10,000 chosen ones through the most dangerous and most sacred instruction God gives, the command to stop speaking and start trusting. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the notification bell right now. Not because I need the numbers, but because the next message I release might be the specific weapon you need for the battle you do not see coming tomorrow. Now let me tell you what the last 72 hours have actually looked like for you. The atmosphere has not just been tense, it has been suffocating. Like something is pressing down on every conversation, every interaction, every room you walk into. Maybe you have been replaying a situation in your mind over and over, rehearsing what you should have said, drafting the message you want to send, building the argument that would finally make them understand. Or maybe you woke up at 3 a.m. this week, with words rising up in your chest. Things you needed to say, things that felt urgent, things that felt like they would destroy you if you kept them inside. One more day. You feel like your silence is suffocating you, like staying quiet is the same as losing. And in that feeling, the enemy has planted a very specific lie. He has been whispering it so quietly you almost mistook it for your own thought. He is telling you that your silence is cowardice. He is replaying that moment when you said nothing. That moment when you let them walk away without a word. That moment when you swallowed what you wanted to scream. He is telling you that your closed mouth is the reason the blessing is delayed. He is telling you that if you had just spoken up, just explained yourself, just defended what was yours, everything would already be in place. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Proverbs 21 verse 23 says, "Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble." Listen to that. Keeps himself out of trouble. God did not say keeps himself out of discomfort. He said out of trouble. There is a level of warfare and destruction assigned to your life that can only be activated by your own words. And God in his fury is standing between you and that destruction, daring you to trust him enough to stay silent. The enemy is not afraid of your arguments. He is not threatened by your explanations. But he is terrified of a chosen one who has learned to close their mouth and let God be furious on their behalf. The silence you have been carrying is not punishment. It is preparation. It is not weakness. It is a sealed weapon. You think staying quiet means you are losing ground. But let me reframe your entire reality right now. Your closed mouth is the most dangerous thing the enemy has ever encountered in your life. What God is building in your silence cannot be stolen, cannot be intercepted, cannot be contaminated, because no one knows it exists. Not even you yet. You are not losing. You are being loaded. What you just heard wasn't entertainment. It was confirmation. And if you're ready to go deeper, the Chosen One's mantle will show you exactly why God separated you before birth, why the attacks came so early, and what he's unlocking in this season. Code by code, until you're walking the life he already wrote over you. The link is waiting in the first pinned comment. But not for long. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is the part most people never reach, not because it's too hard to understand, but because they clicked away before the real revelation could land. And if you've made it this far, it tells me your spirit already knows something significant is happening in this moment. You have been misreading your own story. That is where we begin. Not at the enemy's attacks, not at your failures, not even at your prayers, but at the interpretation you've placed over your own life. You have been reading silence as abandonment. You have been reading delay as rejection. You have been reading your own restraint as weakness. And in doing so, you have been calling yourself what God never called you. You've been wearing labels that were handed to you in your most broken moments, by people who saw your wound but not your warfare, who saw your stillness but not what was being assembled behind it. And until you strip those labels off and break agreement with the narrative they created, you will keep performing your life for an audience that was never meant to evaluate you. Think of David. Not David with the crown. David before the crown, when he was still in the field, still smelling like sheep, still invisible to the very family that should have seen him first. When Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, Jesse lined up every son he considered worthy. Every one except David. His own father didn't think to call him in, and yet heaven had already written his name before Jesse had the thought to overlook him. David's silence in that field, his faithfulness in obscurity, his willingness to do the sacred work when no one was watching. That was not a delay. That was a loading sequence. And the moment Samuel asked, "Are there any more?" everything that had been built in secret was suddenly ready to be revealed. Your field season is not a mistake. It is the formation that the crown requires. But here's where it goes deeper. And this is the part that most people in your position refuse to sit with. It's not just the labels others placed on you that are keeping you stuck. It's the agreement you made with those labels in the moments when you were too tired to fight them. Agreement is not always loud. Sometimes it sounds like you saying, "Maybe they're right," in the middle of the night. Sometimes it sounds like you shrinking in a room where you were supposed to stand. Sometimes it looks like you explaining yourself to people who have already decided what they think of you, as if the right combination of words will finally make them see what God sees. And every time you do that, you are handing your assignment to the wrong courtroom. You are asking a human jury to rule on a divine verdict, and that jury does not have the jurisdiction to speak over your life. Stop appealing to the wrong court. Heaven already ruled. The question is whether you will live by that ruling or keep reopening the case every time someone challenges your identity. And this leads us to something most people completely miss: the pattern that the agreement created. Because here's the thing about spiritual agreements. They don't just affect what you believe, they shape what you expect. And what you expect determines what you prepare for. If you have been in agreement with the lie that says you are too much, too broken, too late, or too far gone, then every preparation you've made has been unconsciously scaled to match that smallness. You've been building to the size of the lie, not to the size of the calling. Joseph didn't just survive his pit. He built in every environment he was placed in. In Potiphar's house, he built. In the prison, he built. Not because the conditions were right, but because he refused to let the conditions determine the ceiling. He carried the architecture of his assignment into every broken place and built anyway. That is what God is asking of you right now. Not to wait until conditions are perfect, but to build, quietly, faithfully, without announcement, in the middle of the very season that looks like it should have stopped you. Stay with me, because what's coming next is the insight that breaks the cycle, and it almost always catches people off guard. The root of the silence you've been struggling to maintain is not actually about your words. It goes far beneath the surface of what you say. It goes all the way down to what you believe about whether God is actually paying attention. Because if you truly believed, not just in theory, but in the marrow of your bones, that the Most High is watching every single moment of your faithfulness, you would not feel compelled to defend yourself. You would not feel the urgency to explain. You would not need anyone to validate what heaven has already verified. The reason the explanation feels necessary, the reason the call feels urgent, the reason you almost sent that message, is because somewhere beneath the surface, there is a fear that if you don't advocate for yourself, no one will. That if you stay quiet, the opportunity will pass. That God is somehow missing what's happening to you. But I want you to hear this clearly. God is not missing it. He is documenting it. Every injustice, every moment of restraint, every time you swallowed your pride and chose peace over war, every time you walked away instead of escalating. Heaven has a record, and divine justice does not operate on your timeline. It operates on God's strategy. When He moves on your behalf, it will not look like a correction. It will look like a coronation. Now, once you understand that, you are ready for the layer beneath even that. Because hidden inside the fear that God isn't watching is something even more dangerous. A counterfeit version of faith. It sounds like faith. It uses the language of faith. But it is actually a form of control disguised as trust. You say, "I trust God," while simultaneously running every possible scenario of how He could fix it. You say, "I'll wait on God," while quietly preparing your backup plan. You say, "I'm staying silent," while internally rehearsing the speech you'll give the moment you feel justified in delivering it. Real surrender doesn't hedge its bets. Real silence doesn't have an exit strategy. And what God is asking for from you right now is not managed trust, it is complete release. He is asking you to put down the plan, close the draft, and walk into the next 24 hours without a script. In just a moment, we'll uncover the one thing that has been hiding in plain sight. The invisible weight you've been carrying that you didn't even know had a name. That weight is called premature disclosure, and it has cost more chosen ones their breakthrough than any enemy attack ever could. Premature disclosure is what happens when you share a God-given vision before it has been sealed by heaven's timing. It is what happened when Joseph told his brothers about his dream, not because the dream was wrong, but because the timing of the announcement created a target before the armor was ready. The enemy doesn't need to steal your dream. He just needs you to announce it too early, to the wrong audience in the wrong season. And the moment you do, the spiritual atmosphere around your assignment shifts. Opposition mobilizes. Doubt enters through the voices of the people you trusted with something sacred. And suddenly, the very thing God told you in the secret place becomes a source of confusion and discouragement, because you handed it to people who couldn't carry the weight of it. God told you to be quiet, because what He is building in you right now is too significant to survive premature exposure. The dream needs darkness to grow. Seeds don't germinate in the open air. They germinate in the ground, in the dark, under pressure. And the moment someone digs it up to see if it's growing, they interrupt the process. Your assignment is in the ground right now. Let it grow in the dark. Let it push through the pressure. Do not dig it up to show people proof of life. It is alive. Heaven is breathing on it. And what comes up from that ground in the appointed season will silence every voice that questioned what was buried. But here's the part you probably didn't expect. And I need you to brace yourself for this, because it is the confrontation this message has been building toward. The most dangerous thing blocking your next season is not the enemy. It is not your past. It is not the people who hurt you, overlooked you, or walked away from you. The most dangerous thing blocking your next season is your own unexamined need to be understood. That need is the open door. That need is what makes you pick up the phone at 11 at night to explain yourself to someone who has already made up their mind. That need is what makes you overshare in spaces where you were called to be quiet. That need is what turns divine silence into human desperation. And the enemy does not need a strategy against you when that door is open, because you are walking out of your own protection every time you reach for validation from a source that cannot give you what heaven already has. Being understood is not a requirement for your obedience. God did not call you to be understood. He called you to be faithful. And there is a sacred freedom waiting for you on the other side of releasing that need. A freedom so complete that when people misread you, misquote you, misrepresent you, it will not move you, because you will have made peace with the fact that the only verdict that matters was already delivered before you were born. And now here is the final layer, the one that reframes everything you just received. All of this, the silence, the restraint, the sealed assignment, the premature disclosure you've avoided, the unmet need to be understood, all of it has been pointing to a single truth. You have been prepared for a level of authority that most people cannot hold because they never went through what you went through quietly. The enemy attacked you early because he saw the weight of what heaven placed on your life before you ever understood it yourself. The warfare was disproportionate because the calling is extraordinary. And the silence God has kept you in is not the silence of a father who has forgotten his child. It is the silence of a general who is moving pieces on a board that you have not been able to see yet. Every conversation you didn't have, every message you didn't send, every explanation you swallowed, every prayer that felt like it bounced off the ceiling. It was all strategic. It was all placement. And you are not at the end of your story. You are at the beginning of your authority. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me now. I release the need to be understood by people who were never assigned to carry my story. I break every agreement I made with the lie that my silence is weakness. My silence is warfare, and it has been working on my behalf. I surrender every draft, every rehearsed conversation, every explanation I was preparing to give, and I place it all at the feet of the Most High. I trust that heaven is not missing a single moment of my faithfulness. I receive the freedom that comes from releasing the verdict of my life back into the hands of the one who wrote it. My assignment is sealed. My season is shifting, and I step forward into what God has prepared, knowing that what He built in the dark will stand in the light. I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not too late. I am exactly where I am supposed to be, and I am ready for what comes next. If this message confirmed what your spirit has been trying to tell you, do not let it end here. Drop the word sealed in the comments right now, because your declaration matters, and I want to stand in agreement with everyone who chose obedience today. Share this with one person who needs to close their mouth before they cost themselves their next chapter. And if you are not yet subscribed, this is your sign, because what I am releasing next is directly connected to the season you are about to step into, and you need to be in position when it drops.